You spent $18 on a lavender plant last spring, watered it, amended the soil, did everything right. By August, it was gray, woody, half dead, and you were back at the garden center buying another one. Here's the honest truth, though. That's not really a you problem, that's a lavender problem. Lavender is one of the most bought and most often killed plants in American gardens today. It wants near-perfect drainage, hates humidity, sulks in clay, and quietly gives up after a season or two. You've basically been sold a fragrance dream with a very short expiration date attached to it. Here's something nobody in gardening really says out loud. There are better options waiting. 11 perennials exist that smell better than lavender and handle tough conditions far more gracefully. One plant on this list barely smells like anything until you cut it, then everything changes completely. That reveal is coming later, so stick around because it might genuinely surprise you. 11 plants, decades of fragrance, one decision today your future self will thank you for. Let's not waste another second. Here's exactly what deserves a spot in your garden this year. Plant 1 is the peony, and there's one growing in upstate New York planted back in 1927. It has bloomed every single year since then, long after the person who planted it was gone. The house has changed hands 3 times, and every June that plant opens exactly as it always has. That's not just a nice story, that's genuinely what peonies do once they're settled into the ground. Picture mid-June, early morning, dew still on the grass, and you walk outside barefoot into it. You smell the flowers before you even see them. Warm rose with a cool citrus edge underneath. It's dense and powdery right at the center, lighter and sweeter as the scent trails off around you. The blooms are enormous, roughly the size of your open hand, ruffled and rich in crimson or blush pink. They're so heavy with petals that the weight actually bows the stem gently forward as they open. Cut one for a vase, and it'll fill an entire room with fragrance for a full week straight. Here's something most gardening videos skip entirely. A decade-old peony clump is worth real money. An established clump can be worth $60 to $120 once it's 10 years in the ground. Divide it in early fall and you can pull 6 to 8 fully viable new plants out for free. So one planting decision today keeps paying you back for years as long as it stays put. Paeonia lactiflora is hardy across USDA zones 3 through 8, and it spreads slowly on its own. It spreads through underground tuberous roots, thriving without ever needing to be divided, though dividing pays off. Just plant the eyes no more than 1 to 2 inches below the soil surface, nothing deeper. Go any deeper than that and you'll get lush foliage with almost no blooms to show for it. That single inch is the real difference between a spectacular display and years of disappointment. Peonies also feed early season bumblebee queens, which rely on that open, accessible pollen structure. It's a critical food source for them before most other wildflowers have even started blooming yet. Plant 2 is agastache, and you've probably bought lavender before because it's marketed as heat tolerant. Then July hits, humidity kicks in, the soil stays wet after rain, and lavender starts browning fast. There's a plant that was actually bred for the exact conditions that tend to kill lavender outright. That plant is agastache, and almost nobody outside serious gardening circles really talks about it. Stand near agastache in full July bloom, and the fragrance hits you immediately and unmistakably. It's warm anise and licorice up front, with a clean herbal sharpness underneath that lingers. There's a faint sweetness that stays on your hands long after you've walked away from the plant. The flower spikes shoot up 2 to 4 feet tall in electric coral, magenta, purple, and sunset orange. Those colors actually intensify in summer heat instead of fading the way most flowers do. Hummingbirds go straight for the tubular florets the moment the first spike opens up for the season. What surprised me is that the fragrance isn't limited to the flowers at all, the leaves carry it too. Crush one leaf and the scent is even stronger than the bloom, sharp, medicinal, and sweet together. It stays fragrant from the moment it leaves out in spring until frost knocks it back in November. Lavender gives you about 6 weeks of scent. Agastache gives you closer to 7 full months. Look for hybrids like Kudos Coral, Ava, or Blue Boa, hardy in USDA zones 5 through 9, with deep, fibrous roots. Plant them in full sun on lean, average soil since rich amended soil actually weakens the stems. Give it your driest, least pampered spot in the yard, and that's exactly where it performs best. Agastache also supports specialist native bees in the Osmia and Halictus genera that need mint family flowers. Without plants like this one, those particular bee species simply can't reproduce successfully at all. So this one planting decision does far more than fill a border. It supports your neighborhood's pollinators. Plant 3 is Russian sage, and it thrives exactly where lavender and ornamental grasses tend to fail. That sun-blasted, deer-visited border you fought for years finally has a plant built for it. It looks so much like lavender that people will actually stop and ask you which variety it is. Russian sage isn't even related to lavender, despite how similar the two look from a distance. Picture late July, full sun, 95 degrees, and everything soft-stemmed nearby is wilting by noon. Russian sage stands there at 4 feet tall, covered in a billowing cloud of tiny violet-blue florets. It gives off a lavender haze look, airy and almost glowing in warm afternoon backlight. Brush past it and the fragrance comes off immediately, sharp, resinous, and herbal with a menthol edge. Here's what most gardeners never learn. Deer don't just avoid Russian sage, they actively recoil from it. The aromatic oils repel them before they're even close enough to consider taking a bite. Plant it along the edge of beds deer already target, and it becomes a natural fragrance barrier. You end up using one plant to quietly protect everything growing around it in the bed. Perovskia atroplicifolia, now called Salvia yangi, is hardy across USDA zones 4 through 9. It handles drought, poor soil, and salt, and needs just one hard cutback to 6 inches each spring. That single cut is genuinely the entire yearly maintenance routine this plant actually needs. It also supports carpenter bees and long-tongued bumblebees whose tongue length matches the floret depth. Plant 4 is bee balm, and it's the plant behind that magical moment of a hummingbird hovering close. It's not a feeder or a fountain doing that work, it's a plant shaped by evolution for exactly this. Stand downwind of bee balm on a warm afternoon, and the scent is genuinely impossible to miss. It's bright, citrusy oregano with a bergamot sweetness on top, warm and instantly familiar. If you've ever inhaled Earl Grey tea before drinking it, you already know this exact scent. That bergamot note in Earl Grey comes from the same aromatic compound living in bee balm foliage. So you're growing a fragrance plant and a genuinely useful kitchen herb from the same root system. The tubular floret shape, that spiky crown of scarlet rose or violet, isn't just there to look pretty. It's a lock and key system, matched almost perfectly to a ruby-throated hummingbird's bill shape. The plant evolved that shape specifically to favor hummingbird pollination over insects entirely. You're not just decorating your yard, you're part of an evolutionary relationship millions of years old. Monarda didyma is hardy across USDA zones 3 through 9, filling space in just 2 or 3 seasons. Pick mildew-resistant cultivars like Jacob Klein or Raspberry Wine, and divide every 3 years to stay vigorous. Monarch butterflies, tiger swallowtails, and over a dozen native bumblebee species work this plant constantly. That's not just a garden ornament, that's a genuine ecosystem anchor sitting in your backyard. Plant 5 is mountain mint, and it breaks nearly every rule fragrant plants usually follow. Most fragrant plants want full sun and dry soil, fading fast without those exact conditions in place. It's architectural, ecologically valuable, and almost unknown outside dedicated native plant circles. Walk past mountain mint on a still morning, and the fragrance reaches you from 6 feet away. It's sharp, clean spearmint, with a cool green edge, crisper and more medicinal than peppermint. The scent lives in the foliage rather than the flowers, so it's fragrant from spring through fall. No bloom is even required for this plant to fill the air with that unmistakable minty scent. Brush a stem and the oils transfer instantly, staying on your skin for hours afterward. A single mature clump in peak bloom has been documented hosting over 40 different insect species. That's 40 distinct species in a single afternoon. Not just 40 individual visiting insects. The Xerces Society ranks it among the highest insect density flowering plants in eastern North America. Your vegetable garden's pollination and your fruit tree's yield genuinely improve when this plant is nearby. Pycnanthemum virginianum is hardy across USDA zones 3 through 7, spreading eagerly through rhizomes. Give it space, or divide it yearly to control spread, planting in full sun to partial shade in moist soil. Its dense canopy also suppresses weeds, meaning you can often skip mulch in the space it fills. At $12 to $15 a plant, one 3-year clump can give you 8 to 10 free divisions. Plant 6 is Garden Phlox, and it saves its best performance for the quiet evening hours. Every plant so far gives you fragrance in daylight while you're actively moving through the garden. This one waits until you stop, until that quiet hour after dinner with something cold in hand. You'll smell Garden Phlox before you see it, throwing scent 30 feet in calm evening air. It's honey-soaked vanilla with warm floral depth underneath, sweeter and softer than rose. The flower heads are dome-shaped clusters 6 inches or more across, densely packed with florets. Colors range from deep magenta to soft lilac, pure white, vivid pink, and rich bicolors. In dusk light, the color doesn't fade, it actually seems to deepen and saturate instead. Cut the stems and bring them inside. One stem in a vase can scent a room for a week. Phlox paniculata is hardy across USDA zones 4 through 8, blooming mid to late summer. It fills that gap between spring's flush and fall color with more fragrance than most anything else. Go with mildew-resistant cultivars only, like David for white, giving space for air circulation and watering at the base. Sphinx moths, the hummingbird moths you've likely mistaken for real hummingbirds, are its primary pollinators. Their long proboscis reaches deep into each floret tube, doing their best work after sundown. Plant 7 is catmint, and it solves the deer problem in a way that actually sticks around. Spray repellents wash off in the first rain, and physical barriers are ugly and expensive. Catmint works differently, stopping deer before they even get close enough to try a taste. It also blooms twice, which is something no other plant on this entire list can claim. In late spring, catmint forms a cascading mound of lavender blue spikes over silvery aromatic foliage. It's soft and billowy, looking effortless along a pathway edge or the front of any border. The fragrance is cool and herbal, subtle up close but overwhelming to a deer from 20 feet out. Their sense of smell reads those aromatic oils as a clear warning signal to stay away entirely. Cut it back by half right after the first bloom flush finishes, then wait about 3 weeks. It comes back fuller and more vigorous, giving you a full second wave through late summer. Nepeta X Faceni. Walker's Low is hardy across USDA zones 4 through 8, mounding to 2 feet in full sun. More than 30 native bee species work catmint through both bloom periods each season. The common eastern bumblebee is a steady visitor, and it's a key pollinator for tomatoes and peppers. Plant 8 is Santolina, or lavender cotton, which delivers the silver, drought-proof look lavender promises. You've probably replanted the same border spot more than once, wondering what went wrong. The real problem likely wasn't your soil or your watering, it was just the wrong plant entirely. Run your fingers along a Santolina stem, and the fragrance hits immediately, sharp and resinous. It's like rosemary crossed with chamomile, with a dry, woody note that gets stronger in the heat. The silver-white foliage is fine and feathery, almost glowing in direct afternoon sunlight. In midsummer, bright yellow button flowers appear on slender stems against all that silver texture. That silver color isn't pigment at all. It's a dense layer of microscopic hairs on every leaf. Those hairs reflect solar radiation and cut moisture loss significantly, structurally built for drought at the cellular level. Santolina cameaciparissus is hardy across USDA zones 6 through 9, needing full sun and sharply draining soil. Put it in your driest, most neglected spot, and it rewards you with years of silver structure. Plant 9 is sweet woodruff, and this is the payoff for that earlier promise about hidden fragrance. Its bloom barely smells like anything, tiny white star-shaped flowers over low, world green foliage. Fresh, it gives off a faint green scent, cool and clean like a forest floor after rain. But the moment you cut sweet woodruff and let it dry, everything about the scent changes completely. A compound called coumarin activates as it dries, and suddenly you get warm vanilla over cut hay. It smells sweet and complex, like the inside of an old wooden chest lined with dried flowers. Medieval Europeans actually used it to stuff mattresses and line wardrobes just for that fragrance. They had no synthetic vanilla or commercial potpourri, so this plant genuinely shaped domestic life for centuries. Galium odoratum is hardy across USDA zones 4 through 8, thriving even in full dry shade under trees. It spreads by rhizome into a dense, weed-suppressing carpet about 6 to 8 inches tall. Plant it once, and it fills that space permanently without asking for much in return. Here's the real question lavender never answered. Why does it fail so consistently, even when done right? The answer is biological, not about your technique. Lavender is a Mediterranean subshrub by nature. Its roots assume rocky, alkaline, perfectly drained hillside conditions that most American soil simply isn't. You weren't failing lavender. You were asking it to live somewhere its biology was never built for. Every plant on this list was chosen because it actually matches real American garden conditions. Plant 10 is spicebush, and it earns its spot through something most gardeners never even consider: bark. Scratch a stem with your thumbnail, and the scent that comes off is immediate and layered. It's warm spice, bright citrus, and deep woody resin, like allspice and lemon zest combined. Lindera benzoin is a native shrub, hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9, flowering yellow before it leaves out. That makes it one of the first fragrant food sources for native bees emerging early in the season. In fall, the foliage turns a clear, saturated yellow that genuinely glows in low autumn light. Then red berries appear, offering high-fat, critical fuel for thrushes and warblers heading south. It's the sole larval host plant for the spicebush swallowtail, a butterfly with iridescent blue-green wings. Without spicebush, that butterfly can't complete its life cycle, so planting one lets it survive locally. It tolerates part to full shade and average soil, needing no pruning or division. Just plant it and walk away. Plant 11 is native wisteria, Amethyst Falls, the one that stops people on the sidewalk outright. You've seen the photos, cascading curtains of purple blooms draped over a pergola or archway. You've also heard the warnings, since Asian wisteria tears gutters off houses and swallows trees whole entirely. Wisteria frutescens Amethyst Falls in full bloom is a physical experience, not just a visual one. Stand beneath it on a still May morning, and the fragrance drops over you, sweet grape and violet. It's honeyed and soft, with a clean floral depth that's far less cloying than the Asian varieties. The flower clusters run 4 to 6 inches instead of 18, but they're incredibly dense on the vine. From a distance, it looks like a waterfall of purple frozen mid-fall, genuinely striking to see. Here's what most gardeners never learn. Amethyst Falls blooms in its first or second year in the ground. Asian wisteria can take 7 to 10 years to produce even a single flower cluster. This native variety reaches just 12 to 15 feet at maturity and skips those aggressive root runners entirely. Wisteria frutescens is hardy across USDA zones 5 through 9, blooming best in full sun. Prune it twice a year, once after spring bloom and once in late summer, to control size. It also supports the silver-spotted skipper butterfly as a larval host plant in your yard. Before you plant anything on this list, 3 rules decide whether all of it actually works. Most gardening content skips these entirely, which is exactly why people end up disappointed later. Rule 1 is drainage above everything else, since poor drainage kills fragrant perennials fastest of all. It's the #1 reason lavender dies, and why several plants here can underperform too. Dig a hole 1 foot deep and fill it with water before you plant anything at all. If it hasn't drained within an hour, fix it with coarse grit and compost worked 12 inches deep. Rule 2 is one-time deep soil preparation, since every plant here is a genuinely long-term resident. The soil prep you do at planting time may be the only prep these plants ever get. Dig 18 inches deep, mixing in aged compost, coarse grit, and slow-release fertilizer at the base once. Rule 3 is planting by fragrance zone, not just by color, grouping scent and bloom time together. Put evening fragrant plants like garden phlox and wisteria near your outdoor seating area. Put foliage fragrant plants like mountain mint, agastache, and santolina right along daily walking paths. Put shade plants like sweet woodruff and spicebush beneath your canopy trees where light is limited. That single decision turns a simple plant collection into a fragrance experience running April through November. Here's what your yard becomes with these 11 plants settled into the ground over time. It becomes a place that smells different in every season, supporting species you've rarely seen up close. It becomes a place people slow down to look at and smell from the sidewalk outside. You spent years replacing lavender, and that cycle stops the moment you plant something built to last. If this helped you rethink what belongs in your garden, go ahead and hit subscribe below. Drop a comment and tell us which one of these 11 you're planting first this season. Tell us your zone and the one garden problem you've been trying to solve for years now. This is your garden, this is your season. Now go plant something that will actually last.